Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to hear our guest Mike's story. So I'm just going to quickly introduce him and then we can get to having this conversation and hearing his transformative journey. So today's guest has a story of survival and transformation. In 2021, he went from a promising future, a growing business, grad school, and a baby on the way, to a battle with financial strain, severe injury, failing health, and a moment where he almost ended his life. What pulled him back was the love for his newborn daughter, starting with short walks while carrying her. He discovered rucking. I love to hear more about that. Lost 80 pounds and rebuilt his health one step at a time. Then in October 2025, he became one of the first people to run a 37.5-mile ultra marathon with a 100-pound backpack, raising awareness for suicide prevention. Please welcome Mike Smith.
Hey guys.
I'm so excited to have you. So give us a little bit of background. That's obviously there was a lot going on. What happened back then, or how did you get there? And then what has brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so as you said, it was actually everything started off really, really good. So I had started into grad school. I was doing nutritional science, and I was thinking about just a few theories that I wanted to test out. I had a background in math from some other schooling that I had done and came with an algorithm that kind of helped measure caloric adaptation and some of those problems better. And while I was in school, I thought, hey, like I'll test this out on some of my friends. I was helping my brother with it, and he lost like 100 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And so then things started going really well and started using it on multiple people, and a lot of people started losing a lot of weight using kind of this formula I had come up with. And so the business really started to grow, and that was awesome, and things were going pretty good. And so that was all going pretty great. It started turning the other direction. Obviously at this time I was working, and then I was also doing grad school, so just really busy.
Yeah.
Me and my wife were expecting our first child, and the first thing that kind of went wrong was in kind of midsummer. My wife was a medical assistant at the time, and her manager lied to her and said that she had like a paid maternity leave, and she didn't.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really bad timing because we were going to have the baby right at the beginning of basically like right in September, so the beginning of a semester.
Yeah.
And so it was right when I would stop working during the summer. And yeah. And so then all of a sudden I'm like, okay,
The
like
stress.
we'll have no money basically for 8 weeks. And
Oh my goodness.
so I was like, okay, this will be fine. Up until that point, before I had started the company, I was doing I was an arborist, so I would just help my brother cut down trees and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just called him that day when I found out, hey, I'll just come work with you. So I basically would work with him all day, and then I'd go home and stay up all night and do my company and write my thesis, my prospectus for my master's. And it was honestly not too bad. Like I had gone through periods of life like that before, and I just thought this will be fine. I'll do this for like 3 months, and I'll save up enough money to offset the 8 to 12 weeks that she won't be working. And then one morning, all I remember is waking up and going into the bathroom, and then basically looking at my wife after she had like revived me. And what happened was I woke up and apparently was just dehydrated and would put my body under too much stress.
Yeah.
And so I passed out and I hit my head on like the tub faucet where
Oh, yeah.
and then fell into the bathtub, and I fell head first, and so I was suffocating.
Oh my
And so it was
goodness.
actually a miracle that my wife was there. I ended up switching the day I worked that week. And so she was actually home because normally we would line it up that I'd work when she would work. And so
Yeah.
then that way we'd always have a little bit more time together.
Yeah.
but she happened to have a day off. So from her perspective, what happened was she heard like this loud thump and then called my name. She didn't hear
Didn't
any response.
hear.
uh,
Silence.
yeah, just silence. And then went in, crazy miracle. She was 8 months pregnant at the time. I'm not a small person. So at that time, I was 6'3" at like 280, 290 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And
Okay.
she lifted me up out of the bathtub. Luckily, she had medical experience. So she did CPR and like got me revived and brought me back. But yeah, so that was kind of the first thing that went wrong. So we went to the hospital obviously after, and they said there was no real lasting damage, but the one thing that was really bad is I had a severe concussion. I hit really hard. So we were in an old college dorm, right? So like the metal in the shower it's that like limestone on
Yeah.
it. I hit hard enough that I broke that off and it was stuck in like the side of my head. So I hit
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I before my life had done MMA and boxing, so like I'm fairly used to it. And it was by far like the hardest I had been hit before. They said I had a severe concussion, and they were like, "Hey, you just have to rest." And I was like, "That's not really an option right now."
Yeah.
And went back to work the next day, and just started the cycle over. Right, so I'd go to work all day doing like the trees, and then I'd come home and work on my company or work on my master's project, and that continued on for about another month, 2 months, and I could really start to tell I was pushing it a little too hard, but it was just, I didn't really feel like I had
A
an
choice.
option. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I just kept going. And then what ended up happening is it started out as just like a dull ache, and then we'd get really, really sharp chest pains. And so at first I just ignored it because I was like, it'll just go away. That was actually the
Of
first thing.
course, because
And I was like, I don't really have time to like,
let's not listen to the body.
yeah, I don't have time to think about this. So I was just like, I'll just ignore it and it'll go away and everything will be fine eventually. And then after about a week, it started to get really bad. And anytime I like stood up, I'd have really bad stabbing chest pains, or if I was trying to walk upstairs and then I couldn't breathe. So I thought I was having like heart attack symptoms.
Yeah.
So I went to the hospital and they're like, hey, no heart attack. That's good. But I had a condition called pneumomediastinum, which is basically what happens is you stress your body out so much that it pushes the air out of your blood into the sac around your heart.
Oh,
And so that sac is there to basically lubricate your heart. So every time it beats, it doesn't rub against the stuff around it. And so
yeah.
once you fill it up with air, you basically feel like every heartbeat. And every time you breathe, it hurts.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I've
so
never even heard of that, but
I
that's
hadn't either. So apparently, it only happened. The two most common ways to get it is like severe physical trauma, so like a car accident or something like that, or women will get it during childbirth from like the amount of pressure that they have
yeah.
to. I've not given
Exert.
birth, but I've heard it's
I
hard.
have. There's a lot of exertion of pressure
Yeah.
of everything. Yes, I
And so
can imagine.
basically, I just pushed my body to the point that it was
Wow.
just mad. And so they're like, hey, just so you know, there's nothing really you can do. Like, you just have to basically wait for it to dissolve back into your blood. And so you're just going to be in pain until it decides to go away. There's no treatment. It's not life threatening. It just hurts.
It just hurts. Oh
and
my gosh.
and so I just kept going and kept going. Same thing. I just kept working. And I'm sure people have been in chronic pain before. It starts to really wear on you when there's just no reprieve. That's the thing that starts to get hard when you start going on months and years with you're always uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It gets to be pretty rough. And the biggest thing that was hard is I've never really been great at sleep. So even when I really do well, I usually get about 6, 7 hours. Like,
That's the most, yeah.
yeah, like my body doesn't like to sleep a lot. And at the time, I was trying to make it through a master's and I already had some learning issues. And I was on Adderall, which would also cut back sleep. And then the symptoms of the pneumomediastinum got way worse at night. And I think it would just mix with I have just like normal asthma, nothing crazy. But at night, I couldn't breathe. So then I'd start coughing and it would just be a cycle. And so it just got to a point where I just like wasn't sleeping almost at all.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy if I got a couple hours a night. And then the other thing that was hard was I couldn't really breathe at night and I couldn't get that work. And then all the stuff I was trying to do for my master's, once I got the concussion, I was really having a lot of hard time with memory and being able to
Yeah.
actually go through that.
Through
Yeah.
the things of that
And
you,
so
yeah.
everything just was slowing down and taking so much longer, and it just kept dragging on, kept dragging on. And it was a weird point in my life because it was one of the first times in my life where like we always joke in my family, it's like if force doesn't work, apply more force, and you just make the world yield, if you will. And it was the first time that like that didn't work. Like
Yeah.
the harder I would go at things, like the more everything would just fall apart. And I got to a point where I just felt like anything I was doing wasn't helping and I just couldn't keep going anymore. And as you said in the intro, I did end up in a really bad place with mental health. One night, I still can remember it was after 2 or 3 nights of just like not sleeping. And at that point in time, I would wake up at about 4 o'clock in the morning so I'd take my daughter from 4 until my wife woke up, do the morning shift because she
Yeah.
had been born and she probably was about a month to 3 months old, somewhere
Yeah.
in that range. And I remember just like staring at the wall all night. And then it was like 3:59 before my alarm went off. I just turned it off because it was like, I'm already awake.
I'm already awake. Yeah. I've been there.
Yep. And at that point, I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. And so I actually had planned to take my life. I got ready and gotten everything I needed. And I went, I kissed my wife goodbye, and then I went to leave. And as I was leaving, I was like, I'm going to go kiss my daughter goodbye one last time. And I went in there, and when I picked her up, I just like couldn't put her back down. And I was like, okay, like she needs a dad, so I have to figure this out somehow.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I knew is my entire life, like exercise and those type of things was a big way I processed stress and got healthier. That was one of the hardest things that I just couldn't. Between the concussion and the chest issues, like I couldn't lift weights, I couldn't do boxing, all the things I loved, I just couldn't do at the time. And so I was like, okay, I have to start really, really basic. And I got a lot of strength from my daughter at that time. And so I literally just wake up in the morning and we had a little loop around our apartment complex and I would just hold her and go for a walk around that loop. And that's what exercise started out as. And it was a really humbling experience to have I don't know, a tenth of a mile walk be hard.
Yeah.
Like, that was something that I had never had done, like really struggled that much in life before. So that was really, really hard coming from beforehand. Like I said, competing in boxing and MMA. I'd also competed in strongman, if you know what that is, where you like,
Yeah.
yep. So like going from being really athletic to like
Not.
it was just extremely like humbling. And so every morning I'd wake up and I'd do that and then slowly just start getting a little bit further and a little bit further. And then eventually I got one of those little baby chest pack things.
Yeah.
And then I just started going like hikes and stuff with her. And I started to realize it was a really good process for both the pneumomediastinum because it was just enough exercise I would let my body heal. And same thing, kind of thing with a concussion without irritating it.
Yeah. Not pushing yourself too much.
And so I just basically slowly started doing that. And then over time, I kept feeling better. And then things with the masters got better. And then I wasn't working quite as much because the company started to grow and those type of things. And everything slowly started to progress. Once I started feeling better, as you said, and as we talked about, rucking is just basically hiking or running with a weighted pack. That's just the term for it.
I was like, I wonder what that is.
So that's just what the term. So I was already doing it, and I was
with
walking around
with the weight of your daughter, right?
Yeah, with the weight of my daughter. And in the past, I had some experience with it. I had a friend who couldn't walk, and he had the ability to use his upper body, but not his lower body. And he always wanted to run a Spartan race.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so me and one of our other friends carried him through the Spartan race. So I'd done.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because I've done Spartan races and that.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was 8 miles. He was 180 pounds. It took 7-8 hours. Like it was a pretty crazy. As I was saying, that was so hard. Is like physically, I was very, very athletic, and then all of a sudden to go down to like nothing, it was so weird to have like putting on your shoes be an exercise.
Yeah.
Like that was something that I just never thought I would ever have to deal with.
Yeah.
Um,
So so you got started with your health journey that way, right?
yep, yeah,
How did that continue to progress, especially with your company or what you were studying for? It sounds
yeah.
like it all intertwined, right?
Yeah, it definitely did. And that was one of the biggest parts of it is honestly, that was the other part that was so hard is, right? I was a nutrition and exercise coach, right? That's what I was doing for my job full time. And it was like, I'm teaching people how to do things and I have people going competing on the weekends and this type of stuff. And it's like, I can't tie my shoes. And
Yeah.
so finally, once I got better and life started to even out some, that was when I was like, okay, now I need to get healthy again. I had before this was actually one of the other things that was so hard is before I got injured, I had lost about 80 pounds. I had got all the
Mhm.
way up to 350 when I was competing in strongman.
Oh my gosh.
And so like purposely got really big when you
Yeah.
just have to be big for that sport. Even 350 is actually pretty small in that sport.
Yeah.
And so I decided I didn't like it as much as I liked grappling. So I was okay, I'm going to lose about 100 pounds and go back to grappling and MMA because that was what I enjoyed more. And I lost about 80 pounds before I got the concussion and got sick and all that type of stuff. And that was one of the other things that was very disheartening was I ended up regaining all of the weight after losing it. And so once I got done with the masters and everything was good, I was like, okay, I'm back up to about 330, 340. I want to get healthy again and get my life back to where it needs to be. And at that point, I was, like I said, when I was walking with my daughter, how I progressed it was I just got a heavier and heavier backpack and just slowly
Yeah.
added weight. And so I built up to about 100 pounds. And I was like, this will be a fun way to just put in kind of a period on this point of this phase of my life. And so I set the goal to basically lose 100 pounds and then do a ultra marathon with a 100-pound backpack.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
Like it's just such a good, I don't know, metaphor.
yeah,
Like
yep,
you're losing this and
yeah,
you're like choosing then to take it on.
yeah. And so that was basically what I did. And I wanted to, at the time, there was looking at it, the world record for like the longest distance traveled with 100 pounds was about 31 miles. And I was like, I had done 24 before, and that was in like 6 or 7 hours. So I was like, I can totally beat that. And so I thought, okay, I'll go basically try to set a world record and I'll partner with some charities and try to raise money for suicide awareness because I didn't realize how quick it becomes a problem, if that makes any sense. Like,
What some
it
sleepless nights can do
yeah,
and then
yeah,
everything else going on. Yeah, it can definitely
yeah. And
alter.
so that was where I was like, okay, like let's try to make this all come together. And so I set that goal. I ended up losing I this year I ended up losing about 80 pounds, somewhere right in that ballpark.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, in October, I did the marathon and ended up going 37 and a half miles. So,
That's so cool.
yeah, so
That's
that's kind of
awesome.
the story in a nutshell. So everything's gotten way better and life's much, much better now. But it was just sometimes it's just how things stack where it can get pretty dangerous. I think any one of those things, I think you face pretty well, right? Like loss of a job isn't that big a deal, and grad school isn't that big of a deal, and a concussion isn't that bad, and some chest issues aren't that bad, and having a new baby isn't that bad. But when all
It's
of
all
them
put
happen
together.
in like
Yeah.
1 month, all of a sudden
Yeah.
things get
You're like, oh, this
pretty
is
rough pretty quick. So
yeah, I can definitely understand that when everything decides to like stack and you're like what else? I
yeah,
can't handle one more thing and it's like that borderline. And then it's so beautiful what we can find to just anchor us and
yep,
ground us. And thank goodness you went back for that one last kiss
yeah,
to your
that
daughter.
last five,
That's so powerful. And it's what we continue to fight for. Like,
yeah,
I've been through 4 cancer scares, and at the last two, I was a single mom of 3 kids, and I was like, I have to fight. And that's where I
yeah,
started my own health journey as well. When I was told the third time, I went through like a depression. I gained a ton of weight. And then I was just like, I need to snap out of this. Like, I'm in a situation where I'm living less than paycheck to paycheck at this point,
yeah,
and with a good career. So I was working my ass off, but I felt so like it was like all just coming
Yeah.
together. And I was like, I need to do something. And I started doing at-home workouts. And for the first time in my entire life, at 32 years old, I was actually like working out, eating right, learned how to eat properly because I come from a Hispanic household. And what are vegetables? We don't know what that is
You have
in
carne
our
asada. Why would you need vegetables?
why would we need that, right? So it was just like learning how to eat and like drinking water. Oh my God, what a
Yeah.
concept. It was just the most simple things. But I started to focus on them on every day I chose to do it. And every day was like that choice. And then it got to a point that once that the fourth time the doctor was like, no, the cancer came back. And he was like, you could do a full hysterectomy. And I was 32 years old. And I was like, do you mean I'm going into menopause after this? I'm 32 years old. My preteen is coming into her teenage years, and we're both going to be hormonal raging people. Are
Yeah.
we kidding right now?
Yeah.
And so it was just all these things that I was like, okay. But I stuck to that journey. And before my surgery. So that I started my journey in August. The doctor told me in October that cancer had come back. And then in December was my surgery. And I had a goal. I was like, I'm going to get under 150 pounds by my surgery date. I was like, I had started, I think, like 168 pounds, but I'm like 5'2". So it just, with my little
Weight
short
distribution's different when you're
it's
shorter. Yeah.
totally different. And so I had been the heaviest that I had ever been. I don't think I had even gotten there when I was pregnant. So it was a lot.
Yep.
And so I was like, all right, my goal is to get to under 150. And the day of my surgery, I was 149.6. And I was like, yes.
There you go.
All right,
Yeah.
let's go. And so I had my surgery, and it's just crazy how when you then start focusing, because I also started listening to like personal growth, and in my ears was always something that was going to be more positive and motivating. And I wasn't letting the crazy dialogue that I would allow to be in my head stay there. I was listening to something that was, I don't know, better and more motivating, and
Right.
that gave me a little bit more hope. And so, yeah, we find stuff that anchors us. I had 3 kids that I had to live for, and so forth. And then by the time that I went to my post-op a week later, the doctor's like, Maria, there was no signs of cancer. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So it's those moments that you're like, oh, well, look at how like actually focusing and putting my oxygen mask on first can completely change
Yeah.
life. And so I totally wholeheartedly believe in that health journey and how empowering it is. I ended up losing like 40 pounds, and unfortunately, that has crept back up because of hormone issues, which I never really had to worry about, but I kept solid 40-pound weight loss for more than 7 years.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even think I could ever do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's really cool. So, how can we find balance between the extremes of health portrayed in media?
Yeah. First, I'm very happy you made it through
Thank you.
your cancer and all those type of things. And I definitely agree with you. I think finding your why is very, very important. Up to that point in my life, I think I just fully acted out of pride where I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then once it was like, I don't care enough to do this anymore, then I needed something
Yeah, to
outside
anchor.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think finding those balances, what I mean by that is I think it's really hard because with social media, you have to get an emotional response. I'm new to social media by all means, but it was funny because I had like my first reel that actually did good and it made me laugh. So I was just basically making fun of people. Like
Yeah.
I put like all this, what I thought was like great content about like science-based stuff and like weight loss and hormones and all this type of stuff. And then one day I was just like, I don't know if you remember the old Reading Rainbow commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I
Yes, I
basically was
do.
like, hey, like I'm a trainer and there's a really easy way to know if you need to warm up. And I just was like, do you know what this is? And just played the Reading Rainbow logo. I'm like, if you do, you're old and you need to warm up. And like,
I love it so much.
it was hilarious because that got like thousands, like 100 times more views than any of the other things that I
Yeah.
put out there, right? And so it's like people like things on social media, things that get perpetuated or things that make an emotional response. And so it has to be extreme,
Yeah.
right? And so what I mean by finding that balance is if you look at kind of both of the extremes, you'll find something in the middle that oftentimes is the healthier option.
Yeah.
I'm always just going to be a larger person. I just am. I was 6'2" at 240 in ninth grade.
Oh
So
my
like
God.
I've just been a big guy my entire life.
We're
Like,
literally a whole foot apart.
yeah, like I've just been big, right? And so it's funny because it's like I've seen it come full circle where I remember growing up and just being like, these charts are false, right? And just
Yeah.
not knowing, now I understand how statistics works. It was just like, no, you're just a freak of nature. You're not supposed to have a 15-year-old who's bigger than most men. That's not how that works, right? And so it's interesting because growing up, I remember thinking like, man, all of these like really rigid things and like BMI, these are all so wrong. And then also now I think, and I really empathize with them, like you get like I don't know if you want to say pro obesity, but like the people who are saying like, oh, there's no reason to try to lose weight. Like it's completely fine, just accept your body, right? And it's like you can
Yeah.
kind of see these two polarizing extremes, right? Where you have the one group saying, hey, like there's no room to take in consideration like ethnicity or body type or anything like that. Like we all just have to fit in this like cookie cutter, which if you
Yeah.
don't and you realize genetically you don't, you're like, that doesn't work. But then it's hard because on the other hand, then you have these other people who are like saying things that are fundamentally false, where it doesn't matter.
It's so damaging.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like those are just like one examples where it's like finding that middle. That's one of the things I constantly work with my clients on is you have to find the pretty much you take like your two options given to you by social media or by the world, and somewhere right in the middle of those is probably where you need to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like I need to understand the fact like I'm probably never going to hit the doctor markers just because that's how it is. Like it's just not going to happen. But then at the same hand, like I need to have enough care about myself to realize, okay, I'm genetically predispositioned to be a big person. So it's like I can't just ignore that, and I can't just like
Yeah.
let that run wild. And
Have to put some
yeah,
skin in the game
find those
for
middle
a reason.
grounds, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing. Is like we always there's always someone taking it to an extreme, and because extremes are the only things that are viewed on social media, we're going to be overexposed to things that are by definition too far. Because anything
Yeah.
that's normal or healthy isn't going to get picked up because it doesn't cause an emotional stir.
Or
People are just going
yeah.
to look at that, oh, okay, yeah, that person looks normal, and then just keep going.
Yeah, I'm short, but I'm Hispanic and I have a very curvy
Yep.
body
Yeah.
type. And so I will never be a size 2. It's not like I could be 5'2", but I will never be a size 2 in pants because my body is not built that way.
Right.
And so I remember telling my sister when I had started losing weight and I saw that this was actually happening, I was like, don't you let me lose my curves. If you start seeing that I'm like losing that, then you have to stop me
Right.
because I know that we can get into this obsessive like mindset of, oh no, but I need to get into
Yeah.
this. And it shouldn't be about that. I started it because I wanted to be healthy
Yeah.
and I wanted to live and I didn't want to be sick all the time. And I realized that having so much dis-ease in my body created a disease and I needed to work on that.
Yeah.
And that was my focus. But I also know that when we get it, that weight loss is just one of those things that if you get too obsessed, it could also be not good.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
it's really important because there is that balance, right? I specialize a lot with large scale weight loss, right? So I've helped many people lose over 100 pounds. This was without drugs and without that type of stuff. And often people ask, when do you stop? And I'm like, you stop when it stops feeling better.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you stop. In your case, you said you started around like 160 and got down to like 140, right? There is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going from 160 to 150, if you feel better, then you keep going, right? And if you go from
Yeah.
150 to 140, you're like, hey, I feel better, then you keep going. If you get to 140 and you go to 130, I don't feel better, then that's when you know, okay, then I've gone too far, right? Like that
Yeah.
needs to be the governing principle. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. I think we are so bombarded with really extreme imaging and content that we
Yeah.
forget like that's not health, even because that's what we think it should be, but it's just not that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that losing the weight that I did, it was about 10 years ago that I started, and being where I'm at now after I had to like understand that I had to take into consideration that in the last few years, my dad passed away and I was his caretaker. And the fact that I already don't produce regular estrogen and I don't produce testosterone, and anybody else my age would
Yeah.
still have that production. I have none. I had a full hysterectomy. There's no way of mimicking that, and I wasn't taking any hormone replacement therapy at that time either. So the cortisol levels when my dad was sick and going through treatment and I was taking care of him and all of that was happening were skyrocketed. And I didn't realize how much I had with my own health journey helped my, even though I had a hysterectomy at 32, I had still kept a good balance
Yeah.
throughout the time period because I never got overly stressed out. I had stressful moments, but I had also things that would help me calm and regulate. And so when my dad got sick and that then became my focus, I still worked out and ate right, but there was some other internal stuff that was happening that I couldn't really control. So my cortisol levels started shooting up. Estrogen and testosterone is like,
Nothing.
it was nothing. So my body was just going haywire. And so little by little, the weight started creeping back on. And I was like so frustrated because I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm still doing the things like
Yeah.
not working. And about a year ago, I started hormone replacement therapy because I was almost at that cusp. They say that they recommend you starting it within 10 years
Mhm.
of any like a surgery, or if you're like perimenopausal or whatever. I was like at that 8th or 9th year, and I was like, no, I gotta start somewhere because I was scared. There was so much misinformation about causing other kinds of cancer, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like
I don't want any more cancer.
4 times is enough.
Yeah.
But I really looked into it and I really started to research, and there's so much more information now. And so I started to do estrogen, and that helped a little bit,
Yeah.
not very much. And so I'm trying to fight with insurance because they don't approve testosterone for women.
Right.
And I like, but it's also at like nothing. And I know that regardless, my body needs testosterone and it isn't just a male hormone because I'm already having issues with osteopenia and so forth. I know that the only way to combat that is to start building more muscle, and
Yeah.
it's just so hard.
Hard. Yeah. No, it really is.
So I've done research on it and I'm like, I know what I need.
Yeah.
Now, can you please help me get there? And so it's definitely interesting to learn how your body works. And it doesn't have to just be cookie cutter for everybody or for every time of your life, because what I was doing at 32 is definitely not working for me at 42, almost 43 years old.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting.
Yeah. It's the two things I think people really struggle with health. I always use two examples. One, health isn't a linear problem, right? So it's not like 1 + 1 = 2. That's what
No.
people think. Like they
Yeah.
think it's much more like solving a Rubik's Cube,
Yeah.
where you have to understand how the sides interact with each other, or you cannot fix the problem.
Yeah.
I forgot who the researcher's name was, but I really liked their work. They started out, they were obesity research, and they started out thinking like, what are the things that could cause obesity. And by the end of the first year of research, they had 4 or 5 causes. And at the end of 10 years of research, there's 350 different things, right? And it's very, very complicated. And your weight is a very complicated thing. And your body actually fights you with a lot of it. And I think you bring up a really good point, though, is the fact that health's always a moving target.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that by definition, what you do to get there will not be the thing you have to do to stay there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so hard for people is people are like, oh, I did something and I got somewhere and now it stopped working. And it will. That's how your body functions, right? Your body's going to adapt to it and you're going to have to change it. And that's one of the things that's so discouraging for most people. Obviously, you went through a lot of health complications and you had all those type of things. To be honest, even without those, you had a very high chance of regain.
Yeah.
Pretty much 100%, to tell you the honest truth. I actually, with my clients, tell them to intentionally regain weight after weight loss and to make it a part of the solution. Because if you don't make it a part of the solution, then it will become the entire problem.
Yeah.
And so you almost are always guaranteed to regain weight after you lose it. And so you have to make sure you do it in a way that it stops early. And some of those things that you're talking about, right, like putting on lean mass and that type of stuff, because as we lose weight, our bodies don't know we're overweight. And so when you lose weight, it just thinks it's starving to death.
Yeah.
And so it actually, your fat cells, a recent shift in physiology that a lot of people don't realize is your fat cells are actually endocrine hormone cells.
Mm-hmm.
So they produce a lot of hormones into our body. Some of the most common compounds in our body are actually the adipocytes, the adipokines, like the hormones that our bodies produce. That our fat cells produce. And a couple of them are called ghrelin and leptin, which basically help you feel full and hungry. And so one of the things that's hard is when you lose body fat, your body stops producing leptin, which is the thing that makes you feel full, and produces a lot of ghrelin. So it wants you to eat again. It's going to force you to eat again. And you're going to feel like you're not eating that much, but you actually are eating more because on a hormonal level, your body's driving you to regain the weight.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I experienced this problem very personally. So this isn't my first go around with losing a large amount of weight. In my early 20s, I actually lost about 130 pounds.
Wow.
And then I ended up regaining it. That was the thing that led me to study nutrition. I was actually in the last year of an actuarial science degree. If you know what an actuary is, they're the people who do the math to make insurance work.
Oh, okay.
So nothing
Nothing to do with
nothing to do with insurance, right? And it was like 2016. I was just about to finish school and I realized I was going to hate that career path and I was thinking about something else and couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I actually I'm not sure if you just saw like the Biggest Loser documentary that came out.
I have not seen that yet. No.
Anyways, a lot of the primary research that they found that people are now making that movie out of, some of the papers actually came out like 2016, almost like 10 years ago. And one of them was this idea that everyone who lost weight regained all the weight. And at that point in my life, I went from like 330 down to 200 pounds, and then I was back up to about 290. And so I was like, this is my life. Like I have to study this. Like I have to. And so that was actually that very problem was the thing that got me into nutrition. And that was at the beginning of this conversation, I was saying the algorithm that I came up with, it was to help solve that problem. Not necessarily the weight loss problem, but like the weight maintenance problem.
Yeah.
Because almost everyone who loses weight will regain some of it. That's just how our bodies work, right? I set off on the journey of let's figure out, instead of fighting that regain, let's figure out how to make the regain part of the solution so you don't regain all of the weight. And it's been really successful. I've had clients now who have lost over 100 pounds and we do the structured 10, 15 pound regain on purpose. And then they've maintained that for several years now without climbing all the way back up. And part of it is also an intuitive eating system that you have to learn how to figure out how food feels in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, you will regain weight. If you only solely go off of like tracking macros and calories, you're going to pretty much always regain all of the weight because there's a lot of breakdowns in that system. I don't know how much you want to dive into that, but yeah,
I nerd out on it. So anything you want to share, I'm here for it.
One of the first things to overcome was understanding that we have to start the fact that everything does come down to calories in, calories out. As crazy as it feels, and as much as it doesn't feel real, that was one of the things that was so frustrating to me. So I was like, there's no way this is real, right? Like when I started and I was regaining the weight, I felt like I was doing everything right. And I was like, there's no way this is real. And then you look at the physics of it and you're like, this has to be the case.
Yeah.
And so then when I started realizing the hard thing with macroing is you run into a few problems when you start tracking food. One, when we do nutritional science research, like when I was doing my thesis, we did a caloric load. We basically looked at, is it better to eat in the morning or in the evening, which we can talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things that was funny is the second you start measuring how someone's eating, they change how they eat.
Yeah.
And so it was funny because like we did these things that are called ASA 24-hour recalls, and it takes an hour and a half. There are these really, really tedious things where you go through and you recall everything that you ate throughout the day. And they like make sure they ask you over and over and over again so they get everything. And it's like kind of the gold standard for recalls in nutritional science research. And it was funny because like multiple women, when we were doing them, the second time they came in, they were like, yeah, like last time I put down, I had 4 candy bars and all this stuff. And so I remembered I was going to have to do that this time. So I didn't eat that way. And so
Yes.
this is the problem is the second you start tracking food, it changes how you eat.
Yeah.
And so you're not actually working on how you eat, you're working on how you eat when you track food.
Yeah.
But the problem is we're not going to track food for the rest of our life, right? And so I'm sure with your situation, your dad gets sick, you're dealing with life, you're dealing with these hormonal problems. Scanning every barcode is the last thing you
Yeah.
have time for. And then it's like, oh, now my mom's cooking because I'm at my parents' house. I don't know what mom put in this, right? You can't
fully track it. Like I
fully
tried.
track it, right?
I
It doesn't
tried
work.
so much to like meal prep and just take my
Yeah,
stuff, and it got to a point where I'm like, I just need to eat
yep,
whatever's
yep.
available.
And so this is the problem, right? Is we train ourselves and we only work on food when we're tracking it. So from the very beginning, we're setting ourselves up for failure because how we eat when we track is not how we eat when we don't track.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
That's
so
very
then
true.
the second we stop tracking, we're going to eat differently. And so then this is one of the things that people run into is they stop tracking and then they start eating how they used to and they don't realize it. And it's very subtle. And we live in such a crazy food environment where like evolutionarily, like we weren't supposed to be able to get 500 calories from a Kit Kat. You know what I mean? We're supposed to have to go like hunt and gather and do the
Yeah, and
so
physically go and
yeah, so it's
do
like
these things.
up to this point in time, like up till 200 years ago, your body was basically designed to get as many calories out of as little as food as possible because those were the people who lived. The people who couldn't get a lot of calories out of the food that we ate, they starved to death, right? And so
Yeah.
genetically, people who are predispositioned to put on weight are the ones who made it up to this point. And then all of a sudden the environment changes and now everything, there's so much food and our bodies aren't designed to be in this environment. And so you run into the first problem with tracking is as soon as you start tracking, you change how you eat. So the second you
Yeah.
stop tracking, you're going to go back to how you were eating before. The other thing that's really hard with tracking, most people use like MyFitnessPal or a similar app to that. They have a lot of error in them. We actually aren't allowed to use them in nutritional science research. So if we're tracking, we have to use different stuff because MyFitnessPal has so much error. I think some studies have shown even up to 40%.
Oh my gosh.
So you can imagine if you're trying to build something and your tape measure has 40% error, or even I think some of these have been easier. Imagine your speedometer has a 40% error rate. Like how often you hit a ticket, right?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work, right? And so those things don't make sense. And so I realized that I needed to come up with some way to keep people from tracking that traditional way because the second you stop, you're going to regain weight, right? That's what happened to me. And so on the back end, I came up with that formula that was a really accurate way to measure the change in someone's weight, which would give me an idea of if they were in a caloric deficit or not. Because that's
Yeah.
how we change weight is if you're losing weight, you're in a caloric deficit. If you're gaining weight, you're in a caloric surplus. So with the algorithm, I was able to get rid of all the noise and actually get a true answer of like, is this going on? So we could tell there. And then I help people develop like an intuitive eating system where instead of tracking, right, we start out with macros so you can get general idea like I need this much protein, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people, have you ever, I don't know if you ever did the thing when you were a kid where like you would go from like the hot tub to the pool if you ever,
Yes.
right? It's very, very noticeable when you go from hot to cold. And so what I always think about is the reason so many people struggle with their health is because they're going from unhealthy to slightly less unhealthy. And so it all feels the same. They're not going from healthy to unhealthy, right? And so what the macroing at the beginning is really just to get you close enough that you understand what good feels like. My body should feel like this. And then when you do something that it doesn't feel that way immediately,
You notice immediately, yeah.
right? That's the whole process behind it. But then, so you get a general idea of where you should be, protein, carbs, and fats. And then I help people come with like an intuitive way of knowing if they have gotten too much food or not enough food, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to govern your weight and where you're going is a caloric deficit or a caloric surplus. And people never focus on that. They focus on how many calories they're getting, or they focus on how much, but they don't know, right? And so a question that most people can't answer is, and I'll even ask you, like, can you tell when you're in a caloric deficit?
When I'm in a caloric deficit, yes, depends on how much of a deficit as well.
Right, yeah, that's a really great question. And then this is the hard thing is if you go too far into one, you end up losing lean mass.
Yeah.
Right? Most people can tell when they're really, really far into a deficit, but not just a little bit. So they can tell when they're losing like tons of weight, right? But they can't tell when they're just enough. And you're shooting for just enough. And so
Yeah.
the,
Yeah, I always thought like losing quick weight always scared the crap out of
yep,
me. And my goal was like 1 to 2 pounds a week. If I
right.
could do 1 to 2 pounds a week, I can maintain that.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I did for a long time was that 1 to 2 pounds a week. And then when I was in my goal, it was okay, now it's just maintaining this. So I have to eat more and I have to, so
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying. I love
And it's
this.
super hard, right? Because it puts you in this place where you're using these arbitrary terms like, okay, I know I need to eat more, or I know I need to eat less, but what am I aiming for?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that gets really hard. And that's the thing people don't understand, right? And so I call it like the cues and skews method, right? And so a cue is something that tells you if you're in a caloric deficit or if you're in a caloric surplus, right? So the one that people always go to first, but it's not actually problematic, is like hunger, right? That's going to be something
Yeah.
that can be that way, right? And so if you're feeling hungry or if you're feeling full, right, like that can be a cue. A skew is something that will manipulate how that feels and make it not feel that way. So an example I always like to give is like if you have like your favorite dessert around, I'm not sure if you ever noticed this, but you can eat like until you're completely full. Like I can't take one more bite of steak or chicken. Like I can't do
Yeah.
it. And then someone's like, "Do you want cheesecake?" And all of a sudden you're like, "I have a second stomach." Right?
Oh,
Yeah, does that make
give me
sense?
some ice cream.
Right. And so like hyper-palatable food causes a skew
Yeah.
where all of a sudden I can eat more than I should be able to. Right? Those are the type of things. And so, for example, like one of the ones that I always go for is I am a terrible candidate. Like I get hangry. I don't know if you get.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I think about as I'm going throughout my day is like I realize that my hangriness gets pretty bad right on the edge of kind of my safe caloric deficit zone. So if my daughter's just being my daughter and I'm like, "Why are you being a child?" and I'm like mad, then I'm like, "Oh, I might be going too far
Into that deficit.
into this deficit," right?
Yeah.
And I have a lot of different things like that. And then you start to break it down by macro, right? Where you know, okay, if I always use the example of like if you feel like tired, like your muscles don't have energy, then you're probably low on carbohydrates,
Yep.
right? Where if you feel old, where it's like I have energy, I just don't have that like snappiness in my body, then a lot of times you're low on protein, right? And so knowing all these things based off how you're feeling. And then once you have a bunch of these cues and you can tell where you're at, having a plan throughout the day where I know at any given time of the day how much energy I should have in my system. And then by manipulating that, it doesn't matter if, because I'm looking at it in the idea of the deficit or the surplus, it will instantly change if my activity changes, right? So if I have a day where I'm really, really active and you need to eat more food, you're not looking at your caloric intake because that's going to change
Yeah.
wildly, right? I'm just thinking about how I'm feeling after I eat. And
Yeah.
so then if all of a sudden I'm looking at, I have a super, super active day, I'll naturally just eat more because I'm just going for that feeling. And then once I get there, then I stop. And if I have a really, really passive day where I'm not doing anything, I just get to that point much faster. And so
Yeah.
then the thing that's so nice about it is you have it for the rest of your life. Once you understand and you've built like an intuitive eating system, you don't have to worry about is my mom cooking versus am I cooking and how many macros are in because you can tell, right? And
Yeah.
so you show up and you know how your body's going to react and you just listen to how your body reacts. And then you don't struggle as much with these regains and all this issue because if you focus too much on the tracking and all that type of stuff, you will stop eventually. That's going to happen. There's no way to change that if that makes any sense. And so that's basically more of the idea and really how I've been able to help a lot with the regain problem is just moving away from having so much of the stuff being external and like, hey, like this is, I focus on food and I focus on this and having it all be internal where it's like, how do I feel when I eat these things?
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing that I think I've learned is that it could be like a healthy option, right? And it might not be a healthy option for me.
Oh yeah.
My body may not react the same. I did like a food sensitivity test or whatever, and
Yep.
there was so much like I used to make my breakfast with like coconut milk and coconut oil, or I would use all kinds of coconut
Yeah.
in everything.
Because it's
And
delicious.
because it's delicious. And come to find out, I have a high sensitivity to coconut. I would bloat, I would feel yucky, and
Yep.
I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
This is good for me. So it's learning also that how to like understand, oh, that just doesn't feel good. And for a long time, I would eat Greek yogurt and I love me some Greek yogurt. And for a while, it just didn't
Work.
feel real good. And I'm like, but that's a good source of protein. And so it was just all of the fighting with like my own body. What is
Yep.
happening with you? Let's go. Another thing was cashews. I loved me some cashews. Give me some good of that healthy fat or
Yeah.
whatever. And then I made, I think it was like a cashew something soup or whatever, zucchini and cashew soup, something like that. It was delicious. And I got so bloated. And I'm like, huh. So when I did the food sensitivity test, cashews was like high.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, that makes so much more sense. Okay. So it was learning that not only I can still be doing all the right things and I still need to listen to my body to tell me, hey, is this going to make me feel good or not? Do I
Yep.
feel good after eating this or consuming this? And I know that this is super like simple, but uh, alcohol, I choose not to drink because I know that at the day after I have alcohol, even if it's one drink, I
You're gone.
feel yucky and I feel like my body just doesn't feel right. And I'm like, okay, I am now old enough to say, no, thanks.
Yeah.
I am exactly the fun person that I am with or without alcohol. I don't need it. I would rather choose to feel good and not disgusting the next day, even if it's with one drink. And so I think that intuitive eating also um,
Right.
has those kind of little nuances that you start just learning, oh, well that might be healthy, but it's not healthy for me and it doesn't make me feel good. So maybe that's not the best option. I can
Yep.
choose something different.
Yeah, and that process just it always comes back down to the basics, right? If you feel good, things are going to happen, right? Like I've helped tons and tons of people lose weight and feel better, and it's always the same thing. Even your story to a certain degree, right? It's like something bad happened, insert death of a father or
Yeah.
stress from work or this, in my own story, right? Health conditions and then I gained weight. right? And it's
Hmm.
like I felt sick somehow, whether that was psychologically or emotionally or physically. And then the symptom of that was I gained weight and lost control of my health.
Yeah.
And so it's like my thing is to start at the root of the problem, where it's like if you don't feel good, that's going to be the issue. Yes, losing weight will help you feel good, right? I've lost 100 pounds multiple times in my life. You feel way better. Like
Yeah.
it's not even it's not,
Oh, my
yeah,
legs are
like
not like making all these kind of
yeah.
noises.
Like I tell you, when I was doing the rucking and I'd put on that 100-pound backpack, like a couple of days in training where I would do like 26 miles and I'd come home and like take it off and I'd be like, oh, I used to carry that around all day,
Yeah,
right? Like you
that's so
feel
crazy.
better. But with that being said, you have to start at the thing of what do I feel good or not, right? Am I feeling healthy or not? Where is this food sensitivity? Is it the what food I'm eating? Is it the amount of food I'm eating?
Mm.
Because everything comes back down to those things, right? Like I've had a lot of success even with treating like hormonal conditions like PCOS and endometriosis and those type of things. And it's interesting because it's like I'm not doing anything that wild or that crazy different than what
Yeah,
other people do. It's just teaching people how to talk to their body.
yeah,
It's much kind of like your body speaks Spanish and you speak English. There's just a language barrier where it's like
yeah,
when you're like, why are you mad at me? And it's mad at you and you don't understand what's going on. And that's really what the game is, learning how to speak the language that your body speaks and then reacting to it. Because I don't really believe in willpower. It's like what you said, like you stopped drinking when you were like, I just don't want to.
yeah. I
That was when
just,
you stopped, right? Like, and it's
yeah,
not like you made a conscious thing, like, I'm sober, and you're not like carrying around,
yeah. I'm
right? Like,
not, yeah, that's,
it's
I'm
just
not
like, I just
carrying it
don't
with a
do that, right?
badge.
And it's like, I've never really met people, everyone I've ever met wants to be healthy,
Yeah,
right? And so the thing is, it's like, the hard thing is we try to do these things and we do the healthy option, like you said, and you're not really feeling any better. And so you're like, okay, well, now I'm bloated and I'm not eating cheesecake, so I might as well just be bloated and eat cheesecake.
yeah,
Like, and so that's the thing is it's like until you get someone to feel good, they're relying on willpower and they're relying on the decision making where it's like it shouldn't be that way. Health shouldn't be that way. It should be, hey, when I avoid cashews and when I avoid Greek yogurt and coconut, I feel better. And so it's like,
yeah,
yes, there's this little bit of a tendency that you might want something that tastes like coconut every once in a while, but it's not like you're using a ton of willpower. You're like, no, because I know I feel sick, so I don't really want it.
exactly.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And that's the process that people have to learn is you have to base off of does my body feel better? Which makes it not a willpower thing. You just don't want to do those other things once you feel good. And
yeah,
that's another way that makes longevity way better, if you will.
yeah. I try to be a good influence on the people in my life. And there's just some that struggle big time with, but I have a sweet tooth. And I'm like, I know, but you feel achy and all the things after the days following, or you drink alcohol and you're complaining about back pain and you're not losing weight and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And I'm like, have you tried not doing those things for just a little bit and see the difference of how you feel? And it's just, it is a struggle, and it's so hard when you like know in your brain that that
Yeah.
this will help. But okay, you do you. You decide whenever you're ready. And that, like, I had people that I worked with that were on a health journey, and they would listen to those things. But if you choose not to listen, you're kind of like, oh, I wish you would just listen to
Yeah.
me.
Let
I
me
can
fix
help.
you.
Let me help fix this.
Yeah. It's really hard too, right? Like the thing is a lot of it comes down to like dosing and knowing why you're doing those things.
Yeah.
I had a client who he had a background in like powerlifting. He's a really big guy. And he, yeah, just because of the culture he was around, had like the cheat meal philosophy. But it's funny because his cheat meals were just outrageous. I mean, like
Yeah.
one of the days his cheat meal was like an entire Costco pumpkin pie. Like, right? And this is where these signaling mechanisms and understanding them comes back is if you're used to getting the feedback that comes into your body when you eat an entire pumpkin pie, eating an appropriate amount feels like nothing.
Yeah.
right? Because your body's not used to it. And then the other thing you have to realize is it doesn't feel good to eat an entire pumpkin pie. And
Mm-mm.
so what in your life makes it feel better to have an entire pumpkin pie in your system, right? And
Yeah.
so when we were unraveling it, you kind of had to come from both ways. One, the emotional side of it is like, why when it's time to eat something sweet, do you need to binge eat? Do you need to eat so much it's painful? What are you processing or running from, right? The drug aspect of food, because there is
Mm-hmm.
very much a drug aspect of food. And then also breaking down and seeing how, like, teaching him over time what a normal amount of food was. And so one of the things that we did was I was like, okay, you can eat your entire Costco pie. That's fine if that's really what you need. But what I want you to do is cut it up into, and we did the math, and it was something like 30 grams worth of carbohydrates. So it was like a bite and a half of pumpkin pie. And I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
eat that and then wait 30 minutes or wait about 15, 20 minutes and then eat it again and pay attention to these cues that we had talked about and these changes in your body. And what happens when like we slowed it down and he was eating it and then paying attention to how he felt, he realized really quickly, like, oh, I only need two or three of these little cubes, and then all of a sudden I'm too
And
like over full,
yeah.
right? And so then it was funny. Now he always jokes and he's like, "You ruined me," because he can't like enjoy food how he used to. Because like he eats two or three bites and he's like, "Oh, I don't feel good now,"
Yeah.
and then he stops, right? And it's like that. But it's really taking the time to one. We obviously we did a lot to address the emotional side of that eating, but then also to be like, "Hey, like let's give your body a chance to talk to you." Right? Like
Yeah.
you're basically just waterboarding it with pumpkin pie and it's screaming, trying to tell you,
And
hey,
you
like
will never hear
you
it.
need to stop, and all you're getting is it just tastes so good that
Yeah.
you're not allowing it, right? And it's like those are the things we're building the structure and actually knowing what you're supposed to feel like and knowing the change in your body really helps because I've been really big and I've struggled with binge eating and like those type of things and it's like it doesn't make sense to you. Like
Yeah.
when you see like a healthy person or you see someone who's not doing it, you're like, no, I don't understand how that is going to be any more happy than I am right now. Because I'm going to tell you right now, food makes me really happy,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't get to how big I was without some type of emotional tie to food. And like when people are
Yes.
like, I have a sweet tooth or I have this, it's like, okay, there's a reason behind why you feel that way. And
Yeah.
addressing it and then reteaching your body like the dosing, it's just like anything else, right? Like you talked about hormone therapy. Very can be very, very beneficial, but the dose has to be right,
Exactly. Oh
right?
yeah.
So it's like you have to. And so that thing is like with food, the dose has to be right. And you need to know what it feels like if it's not. Because
Yeah.
that's where we get in so much trouble is these people did like we eat and the dose has been off our entire life, right? Like everyone in my family, when we move out of my parents' house, we lose like 100 pounds because like we're just
Because we have to actually do stuff
well, no,
for,
I just joke. I just say because of like my family culture is like we're just eaters. It's not that
yeah.
it's not like we're social eaters or anything. Like it's just we're just eaters. It was like
Yeah.
everything was around food. It was like if you
Yeah.
did good, you got food. If you had a bad day, like mom will make you cookies. Does that make sense? And so it's just there was so much culture around
Yeah.
everything.
We're celebratory about everything.
Yeah, like
So
everything came back to food. Does that make
yeah.
sense? And
All
so
the absolutely.
when I left it all of a sudden it was like, oh, now I can't do that. Then you lose a bunch of weight because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess I don't need to eat 7 times a day, and I don't. But in that situation, that's normal. That's what feels normal to you. And so then not doing it feels very foreign. And so when someone's like, have you ever tried just like not going without sweets for a week? And you're like, have you ever just like tried not going without air for a week? Like, no, I haven't gone without sweets for a week. Since I've been
Is
born,
air
I haven't gone
important?
more than a day. Like, it's hard because you want to shake people, hey, just let me fix you, but you don't realize like how much of a change it actually is
Yeah.
when you're going through those type of things.
Yeah. And so my boyfriend will go through like, oh, I'm cutting out sweets. And he's like, oh, I'm so happy. I've lost like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pounds, whatever. And I'm like, that's awesome. Great job. And then he'll be making cookies. And I'm like, yep, here
Yeah.
we go.
And that's the thing is, right? It's knowing it's we have a draw for these things, right? And so it's also knowing, okay, how much of cutting it out is just going to make me eat more later.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things like I'm a huge fan. That's what my research on when I was in my master's was like caloric front loading. So getting more of our calories in the morning, especially our
Yeah.
carbohydrates, like our body processes carbohydrates a little better in the morning.
Yep.
And so it's like that same client that I was talking about, the guy who he lost like 100 pounds and was eating entire pumpkin pies and that type of stuff. Like the whole time he lost the 100 pounds, like he ate peanut butter cups every morning. Because
Yeah.
he just loved peanut butter cups. And I was like, bro, like if you love peanut butter
Don't do
cups,
it at night.
yeah, like he ate a peanut butter cup and then like he would go to work or he'd go to the gym. And I was like, and that's the sweet for the day.
Yeah.
Like if you're just eating it for the taste of it, it's okay to just have a taste of it then. Like it doesn't need to be half of your caloric intake. And it's
Yeah.
hard because I think people, once again, it goes back to that like finding the balance. I eat nothing but celery and lean beef, or I just eat whatever I want because that's what the media portrays. And in between those two is probably really where you need to end up. But it's hard for people to find that happy medium. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, I agree. Goodness, this has been so stinking good. You're like, because I feel like I understand aspects of what you're saying and just putting it all together. And I love that there's also science stuff behind it and it helps my nerd brain.
Yeah.
I love that things work, but tell me why this works or how this works, and I can stand behind the
Yeah.
process so much better.
No, I really believe in that. It's one of the things I tell my clients. Like, I love the saying of if a man knows his why, he can endure any how.
Yes.
And I try to work with people somewhere between about a year to 18 months. Usually that's about what it is. And like, I always can tell if I did my job because when I talk to them like a year and a half later, they've done better, right? Like
Yeah.
they've continued to do more. And I believe in like educating someone. Like you should not just give somebody like, hey, this is what you should do. You should tell them
Why and
this is
how.
why it works and this is how to do it so you understand how to do it moving forward, which
Yeah.
is very, yeah, I think you
It's
need,
empowering.
yeah,
It's empowering to be able to, or it's empowering to others that you're giving them this information and you're empowering them to take that control. And I think that as human beings, we just need and want control. And if we can understand why it all works and how it all works and it all puts together, I think that it's easier to transition to, oh, well, let me listen to my body.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, that doesn't feel good. I don't feel good. And so maybe I need to just shift something else. I can substitute something to make me feel better. And yeah, I love that. So, what limiting beliefs or roadblocks do you feel you had to overcome in order to get where you are today?
one of the big shifts, and it's happened multiple times in life, is learning how to switch between motivating factors. So for example, at the beginning of this story I talked about how moving from being just like pride focused, right? I think I just had a really big chip on my shoulder growing up,
Mhm.
and I was never really as popular or as liked as I wanted. And then somewhere in like my early 20s, I was like, I'm going to change that. And I went and did all the things that I was like, I'm going to go be an MMA fighter. I'm going to lose 150 pounds. I'm going to do that. And so much of it was just pride driven, where it was just like, I'm going to go do this because I want to prove to everybody that I can do this, right? And
Yeah.
then when I hit rock bottom, where it was like, I don't care anymore about, I've gotten to the point where I have nothing less to prove and I'm done. Pride had only taken me so far.
Yeah,
And then it
that's a
was
lot
just,
of work.
yeah, and then it was really interesting to see also like, hey, now my motivating factor is purely just my family,
Yeah.
which was really hard, right? Because I think having a daughter filled a hole of loneliness that I had not realized was there. And so on one hand, it took away that chip on my shoulder where, oh, like I'm enough. Like I have like a wife and a family and this is what I need in life. But then all of a sudden, like now I still have to figure out a way to be motivated when I'm not driven by that,
But
right?
yeah.
Fear of not being accepted is gone.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to prove to the world that you're good enough to be loved, it's like, oh, I'm loved now.
Yeah.
But now I need to have the motivation to be like, but now I need to be around for them and I need
Yeah.
to provide for them, right? And so it's like they gave me the things I could never give myself. So now I need to go out and work and give, right? And that was a really hard mental thing because up to that point, it was always, if you don't want to, it doesn't matter. Like just grind it out. You have to go do this.
Yeah.
And then it was like so hard to be like, no, I want to stay at home and spend some time with my wife and kids more than anything, but I need to go exercise right now. Or I
Yeah.
need to not have dinner time be cake and ice cream and that type of thing. And learning how to shift between those motivating factors is very difficult. Another one that's hard is shifting away from fear motivation to
Hmm.
like another one, right? Where when I got really big and I was so unhealthy, I couldn't walk up the stairs and that type of stuff, you get reminders all day long where I need to lose weight. And you're running from a problem. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden now I'm like 270-ish. And it's so much easier to be like, man, I want some extra food or I want this because I don't have that fear motivator in my life. I don't feel
Yeah.
like I'm going to get sick and die. Right. And so it's like, those were the biggest real roadblocks. I like doing stuff. I never don't do things. I just need to be doing the right things, right? I never really shut off. I'm always doing something from the second I wake up till I go to bed.
Me
And
too.
so for me, the hack is always just being motivated to do the right things. And that's always the biggest roadblocks for me when I look back is knowing how to pick the right thing to be motivated by and then knowing how to shift in them when they dry up.
Yeah.
Because most motivating factors will dry up eventually.
Yeah.
And so then you have to learn how to, okay, how do I shift to something else? Going from being fear driven, because I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack and die, to being more passionately driven. Like, I want to see how far I can take my body and how healthy I can actually get it,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. I love that. Goodness, this has been so good. So I guess give me a daily habit or ritual that you feel has helped you get to the level of success that you are now.
The number one thing I tell everybody is focus on your worst day. If your
Yeah.
worst day gets better, your best day gets better. I've literally lost clients because they just only wanted to focus on what they were doing when they felt good. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care if you can run a marathon on a day that you feel good. Give
What
me
can
the
you
day
do?
when you're depressed and you're binge eating and you hate your life, and let's make that day 1% better. Because
Yeah.
if you do that, everything else will always get better, right? And so it's like that. To me, that's the thing I'm always looking at is you have highs and you have lows, and I base everything off of my lows. So I say, what was the last low? What was the last time I felt really rotten and really terrible? And then be like, as that is that getting better? Or how do I make that better every single day? And it's not comfortable and it's not pretty, right? Because it's not like you can't post online, hey, I was really stressed and I was emotionally eating, but I stopped one scoop of ice cream shorter than I normally do.
Yeah.
You can't post that on social media.
You could, and
It's,
really real.
yeah, does that make sense? But it's just not quite the
Yeah.
same, right? And it's,
It doesn't hold the same punch.
yeah, even with what I'm saying, right? It's very easy to be like, hey, I trained super hard and I went out and sadly I didn't technically break a world record because I didn't realize you had to contact Guinness beforehand. I thought you sent it in after. So I missed the chance to have a world record, but technically it was a world record. No one had done that before, right? And it's like all of the things of, yeah, like I had all these great training days and all this stuff. And it's like, but I know my bad days went from I'd wake up and just be an emotional mess and barely get through work and do nothing to my bad days where, hey, like I don't have it in me to put on 100-pound pack, but I'm still going to go do the mileage. I'm
Yeah.
still going to go walk the 10 miles I was supposed to go today, even though
Yeah.
that's a failure, right? Even though
Yeah.
that's not what it's supposed to be. But
Definitely failing forward.
yeah, moving your worst day is how you create changes in your life. We
I love that.
focus so much on our best days, and then all that we do is we just make the gap between our best days and our worst days bigger and bigger and bigger. And then
Yeah.
we wonder why we can't be consistent and why we regain weight and why because it's like, well, we're only basing things off of when everything goes perfect. And like this whole podcast is about the fact that very rarely does everything go perfect. Like most of the time,
Exactly.
if everything's going to line up, it's probably going to line up in a bad way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's always what I say. Always start with your worst day and build on that.
I love that so much. Yeah. I used to work out 7 times a week.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes a day, whatever. And then it got to a point where I just was like, no, I'm tired. I don't want to do it. I don't have time. Blah, blah, blah. I gave myself all the excuses that I used to have. And now I'm like, heck yeah, I did 4 days this week.
Yep.
And so it isn't the same as I used to do 7 days a week, but I'm doing so much better than I was
Yeah.
with 0 days. So yeah, it's crazy to have been like this up and down journey. And I think that I've learned a lot, and I've really, this new season have just shown me personally that it's not going to look the same.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't look the same, we can have other things in our tool belt to be able to add to that. So I don't know.
No, I totally agree.
Anyways, I have loved this conversation so much. I'm so excited for everyone to hear. Mike, it was so awesome to chat with you today. Listeners, I hope you got as much from today's conversation as I did. I will put all of Mike's information, how to contact him, how to stay in communication or social medias or whatever, in the show notes. So thank you so much for watching. Peace out, guys. Love your life.